The massive glass dome of the Galactic Council chambers stretched high above the assembly floor on Nexus Prime. 7 different alien species sat in their designated sections, each group representing billions of lives across dozens of star systems. The air recyclers worked overtime to maintain an atmosphere that all species could breathe, creating a slight hum that never quite disappeared. Ambassador Lisa Martinez walked through the main entrance carrying her briefcase filled with trade proposals and diplomatic documents. She had been Earth's representative for 3 years now, long enough to understand the complex politics that ruled this place. The humans were still newcomers here, barely accepted as provisional members after first contact had happened only. A decade ago, Lisa wore her best diplomatic uniform, navy blue with small silver emblems showing Earth's position in the galaxy. Her brown hair was pulled back in a professional style, and her dark eyes showed the careful attention of someone who had learned to read alien body language and subtle political signals. At 38 years old, she had already accomplished more in diplomacy than most humans would in a lifetime. The Krillian delegation sat in the largest section of the chamber. Their leader, High Chancellor Vexstar, stood nearly 8 feet tall with gray skin that looked like stone and eyes that glowed with a dim red light. The Krillians had controlled the council for over 2,000 years, and they did not like the way humans asked questions about everything and refused to simply follow orders. Lisa took her seat in the human section, which was much smaller than the others. Her staff of 5 assistants sat behind her, all of them young and eager to prove that humanity deserved a place among the galactic powers. They had spent weeks preparing for today's presentation about expanded trade agreements between Earth and the Council worlds. The session began with the usual formal speeches from each delegation. The Zephyrians spoke about mining rights in the Outer Rim systems. The Altarians discussed their latest scientific discoveries. The Hegemony faction, led by the Krillians, made their standard complaints about upstart species that did not know their place in the galactic order. When Lisa's turn came, she stood and activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. Images of Earth appeared, showing green continents and blue oceans that looked beautiful even to alien eyes. Then came pictures of human colonies on Mars and Europa, along with the new settlements being built on worlds beyond the solar system. Lisa began speaking in the clear, measured tone she had perfected over years of diplomatic training. She explained how human manufacturing techniques could benefit all council species, how Earth's agricultural methods could help feed growing populations, and how human medical research was making breakthrough discoveries that could extend life spans across the galaxy. The proposal was reasonable and fair. Humans would share certain technologies in exchange for access to rare materials and unrestricted travel through council space. It was the kind of mutual benefit agreement that had built the Council's prosperity for millennia, but High Chancellor Vexstar had not come to negotiate today. He had come to end what he saw as the human problem once and for all. The Krillians had spent months building support among the other Council species, convincing them that humans were dangerous because they advanced too quickly and asked too many questions about how things had always been done. Lisa was midway through explaining the medical benefits of human genetic research when the first energy bolt struck her in the chest. The blue-white beam came from the Krillian section, fired by what appeared to be a ceremonial guard's weapon. But this was no ceremony, and the weapon was very real. More energy bolts followed from different directions. The Zephyrians opened fire from their section while hegemony agents in the observer galleries began shooting at Lisa's staff. The chamber's security systems, which should have activated automatically to protect all delegates, remained strangely silent. Lisa fell to the polished floor, her briefcase spilling papers across the ground. Her assistant Danny Rodriguez tried to reach her but was cut down by crossfire from 3 different directions. The other staff members died within seconds, their bodies scattered around the human section like broken dolls. The attack lasted less than 30 seconds. When the energy weapons finally stopped firing, the human delegation was completely eliminated. Smoke rose from the blast points on the chamber floor, and the smell of burned metal filled the recycled air. High Chancellor Vexstar stood slowly, his glowing red eyes surveying the scene with satisfaction. He spoke in the formal council language, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. The humans were declared enemies of galactic peace, and their provisional membership was terminated immediately. Any human ships found in council space would be destroyed without warning. The other council species sat in their sections, some looking uncomfortable but none speaking up to object. The Altarians had abstained from the vote to kill the human delegation, but they made no move to help or protest. The deed was done, and galactic politics would continue as it always had. The official record would later state that unknown terrorists had attacked the council chambers, killing several delegates, including the human ambassador, in a tragic accident. The investigation would find no evidence of council involvement, and the security system failure would be blamed on a computer malfunction that could not be prevented. Meanwhile, on Earth, the encrypted message traveled through quantum communication networks at faster than light speed. Admiral Jack Harrison received the transmission at Fleet Command Headquarters buried deep beneath the Colorado mountains. His weathered face showed no expression as he read the report 3 times, but his aide, Commander Kate Sullivan, noticed that his hands began to shake slightly. The message was brief and direct. Ambassador Martinez and her entire staff were dead, killed by council forces during what appeared to be a coordinated assassination. Humanity was being expelled from the galactic community with immediate effect, and any human ships that remained in council space after 72 hours would be destroyed. Admiral Harrison set down the datapad and walked to the secure communications terminal. His fingers moved quickly over the controls, entering authorization codes that had been programmed years ago but never used. The screen displayed a single question in red letters: "Activate Total War Protocol. Confirm YN." Harrison paused for only a moment before pressing the confirmation key. Across Earth and throughout human space, hidden systems began to activate. Military bases that did not officially exist started receiving coded orders. Scientists working on classified projects found their research priorities suddenly changed. Ship captains who had been told they were conducting routine patrols discovered their real missions. The Galactic Council had made a choice today, and now humanity would respond to that choice. But the response would not come immediately, and it would not be what anyone expected. The Council species would have time to congratulate themselves on eliminating the human threat. They would have time to feel secure and superior. They would need that time, because it would be the last peace they would ever know. 3 weeks passed in what appeared to be calm acceptance from Earth. The galactic news networks reported that humanity had responded to their expulsion with disappointing but understanding messages about respecting the Council's decision. Human colonies in the Outer Rim systems began what looked like a voluntary withdrawal from Council space, with transport ships moving people and equipment back toward Earth-controlled territory. The Krillian High Command held celebration ceremonies on their homeworld. High Chancellor Vextar gave speeches about how the galaxy was now safe from the dangerous human influence. Other Council species sent congratulatory messages, praising the wisdom of removing the unpredictable newcomers before they could cause more disruption to the established order. But appearances can lie, and the Council species were about to learn just how much humans had learned about deception during their brief time in galactic politics. Far beyond Pluto, in the cold darkness, where no Council ship had ever traveled, Admiral Jack Harrison stood on the bridge of a vessel that did not officially exist. The UES Retribution was 3 miles long and built with technologies that the Council had never seen. Its hull was made from materials that could phase between dimensions, making it invisible to every known type of sensor. Its weapons systems drew power directly from contained black holes, generating more energy than entire star systems. Captain Ryan Blake commanded the ship with the quiet confidence of someone who had trained for this moment his entire career. He was 35 years old, with short black hair and the kind of steady hands that stayed calm under pressure. His crew of 2,000 specialists had been selected from the best of Earth's military forces, but none of them appeared on any official roster. The Retribution was not alone in the darkness. Around it floated dozens of other ships, each one representing years of secret construction and technological development. The Council had seen only Earth's oldest and most basic vessels during diplomatic missions. They had no idea that humanity had been building a fleet specifically designed to fight a war against superior numbers. Dr. Susan Wright worked in laboratories built inside hollow asteroids, where her research teams developed weapons that no ethical civilization would ever create. She was 42 years old, with gray hair and the tired eyes of someone who had spent too many years thinking about how to kill alien species efficiently. Her specialty was biological warfare, and she had been preparing for this day since the first human diplomats had brought back genetic samples from Council worlds. The weapons her teams created were designed with surgical precision. Each one targeted specific alien genetic markers while leaving human biology completely untouched. A virus that would kill every Krillian in a star system would have no effect at all on humans or even on other alien species. It was genocide-made, precise, controlled, and terrifyingly effective. General Paul Martinez commanded the human ground forces from a base built inside the moon's core. He shared no relation with the murdered ambassador, but the coincidence of names had made this assignment personal for him. His troops wore power armor that made them individually stronger than most alien species, and their weapons could punch through the heaviest known alien defenses. But the most important work was happening in places the Council could never have imagined. Intelligence Director Alex Thompson coordinated with human civilians who had been living peacefully in alien territories for decades. These people had built normal lives, started families, and become trusted members of alien communities. None of them appeared on any intelligence agency database because they were not traditional spies. They were ordinary humans who had volunteered years ago to become part of a contingency plan. Teachers, shopkeepers, engineers, and farmers who lived normal lives while quietly gathering information about infrastructure, military capabilities, and population centers. When the activation codes reached them through hidden communication networks, they began their real work. Engineer Commander Lisa Park operated from a research station that existed in folded space. Invisible to normal detection methods, her team had spent 5 years perfecting humanity's ultimate weapon, something so terrible that even Admiral Harrison had initially refused to authorize its development. The cascade generator could destabilize the nuclear fusion process inside stars, causing them to collapse or explode depending on the specific settings used. The device was small enough to fit inside a standard cargo container, but it could destroy entire solar systems. More importantly, it could be deployed remotely and activated from thousands of light years away. The Council species would have no warning and no defense against a weapon that turned their own suns into instruments of destruction. Park was 29 years old, brilliant beyond measurement, and haunted by the knowledge of what her creation could do. She had argued against building the weapon until Dr. Wright convinced her that its mere existence might prevent the very war they were now preparing to fight. The irony was not lost on her that the deterrent had failed to deter anything. As the fourth week began, the first phase of Total War Protocol moved into action. It started with what appeared to be random system failures across Council space. Communication satellites developed mysterious malfunctions. Power grids experienced cascading failures that took days to repair. Transportation networks found their scheduling computers infected with viruses that seemed to come from nowhere. The Council's technical experts investigated each incident, but they found no evidence of outside interference. The failures appeared to be natural consequences of aging infrastructure and normal technical problems. None of them realized that human sleeper agents were carrying out carefully coordinated sabotage operations, designed to look like accidents. Captain Sarah Evans commanded a squadron of stealth ships that had been monitoring Council military bases for months. Her vessels used cloaking technology based on dimensional phase shifting, making them completely invisible to alien sensors. Her crews had mapped every defense installation, cataloged every weapon system, and identified every possible weakness in Council military infrastructure. The intelligence they gathered revealed something that would have shocked the Council leadership if they had known about it. Human technology had advanced far beyond anything the aliens possessed. The gap was not small or temporary. It was enormous and growing larger every day. Earth scientists had made breakthrough discoveries in quantum mechanics, dimensional manipulation, and energy generation that put them decades ahead of Council science. The aliens had become comfortable with their technological superiority, and that comfort had made them lazy. They had stopped innovating, stopped pushing boundaries, and stopped asking the hard questions that led to real advancement. Humans had never stopped asking questions. Even during their brief time as Council members, Earth scientists had been studying alien technology and finding ways to improve it. They had taken the best ideas from 7 different alien civilizations and combined them with human innovation to create something entirely new. The result was a military force that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning, strike with devastating precision, and disappear before any response was possible. The Council had built their power on overwhelming numbers and established defensive positions. They were about to face an enemy that made those advantages meaningless. Commander Thompson's sleeper agents began receiving their final orders through quantum encrypted channels that the Council could not intercept or decode. The messages were simple and direct. The time for hiding was over. The time for revenge had begun. Across dozens of star systems, humans who had lived peaceful lives for years began to remember their real purpose. They activated hidden equipment, contacted other agents, and prepared to strike at the heart of alien civilization. The Council had murdered Earth's diplomats and expelled humanity from the galaxy. Now they would learn what happened when a species built for war decided that peace was no longer possible. The Total War Protocol was fully active, and there would be no turning back. The attacks began at exactly the same moment across 17 different star systems. Council military commanders first noticed strange readings on their sensors, energy signatures that made no sense according to everything they knew about physics and space travel. Then the human ships began appearing out of empty space like ghosts materializing from another dimension. Captain Ryan Blake's squadron emerged directly above the Krillian homeworld, their vessels phasing into normal space using technology that made alien sensors scream warnings about impossible readings. The UES Retribution hung in orbit like a dark metal mountain, 3 miles of advanced human engineering that should not have been able to exist according to Council science. The Krillian planetary defense grid activated immediately, launching missiles and energy beams at the human ships. The weapons struck harmlessly against shields that bent space itself around the attacking vessels. Energy that should have vaporized entire city blocks simply disappeared into folded dimensions, leaving the human fleet completely undamaged. Blake stood on his bridge, watching the defensive fire with calm professional interest. His crew worked at their stations with the smooth efficiency of people who had trained for this moment for years. The first salvo of return fire targeted military installations with precision that spoke of months of intelligence gathering and careful planning. Krillian defense platforms that had protected the homeworld for centuries disappeared in brilliant flashes of directed energy. Orbital shipyards collapsed into twisted metal as human weapons carved through their structures like burning knives through paper. The planetary shield generators, massive installations that should have been impossible to destroy, exploded one by one as human fire found their exact weak points. But it was the message that followed the first attack that truly shocked the galaxy. Admiral Jack Harrison's face appeared simultaneously on every communication network across Council space. His image broadcast through quantum channels that bypassed all security systems and appeared on screens that were not even connected to outside networks. His voice was calm and measured, carrying the authority of someone who had made an irreversible decision and felt no doubt about its correctness. He spoke directly to the camera, his weathered face showing no emotion except absolute certainty about what was going to happen next. The Admiral explained that the Council had made a choice when they murdered Ambassador Martinez and her staff. They had chosen to believe that humanity would quietly accept expulsion and fade into obscurity. They had chosen to believe that a peaceful species would remain peaceful when pushed beyond all reasonable limits. They had chosen to test whether humans would fight back when their diplomats were assassinated and their people were threatened with extinction. Now they would learn the answers to those questions. This was not a war for territory or resources or political control. This was a war fought for the principle that peaceful species deserved protection from predators who would kill diplomats and threaten genocide. The Council had started this conflict, but humanity would finish it. The human fleet that emerged from the outer darkness numbered in the thousands. Ships appeared in star systems throughout Council space, each one moving faster and hitting harder than anything in alien databases. They used weapons that ignored energy shields, tactics that suggested years of studying galactic military doctrine, and technology that made Council defenses look like ancient relics. General Paul Martinez's ground forces began landing on strategic worlds within hours of the first space battles. His troops wore power armor that made them individually stronger than most alien species, carrying weapons that could punch through the heaviest known defenses. But more importantly, they moved with the coordinated precision of forces that knew exactly where they were going and what they needed to accomplish. The truly devastating attacks came from Dr. Susan Wright's Biological Warfare Division. Carefully engineered pathogens began spreading through Krillian population centers, diseases that targeted their specific genetic markers while leaving other species completely unharmed. The viruses moved through air and water systems, transmitted through touch and breath, spreading faster than any natural disease had ever spread. Krillian civilians began falling ill within hours of exposure. Their gray, stone-like skin developed dark patches that spread across their bodies like growing shadows. Their glowing red eyes dimmed to faint sparks before going dark entirely. Medical centers filled with patients that alien doctors could not treat because the diseases had been designed specifically to resist every known cure. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. Humanity possessed the knowledge and capability to eliminate entire alien civilizations with surgical precision. They could target specific genetic markers while leaving everyone else completely safe. The Krillians were dying by the millions, but humans living on the same worlds remained perfectly healthy. The Council's military response was hampered by the systematic destruction of their communication networks. Commander Alex Thompson Sleeper. Agents emerged from decades of cover to sabotage critical infrastructure with the inside knowledge that only trusted community members could possess. Power plants experienced catastrophic failures. Transportation hubs collapsed under precisely placed explosives. Supply lines that had operated smoothly for centuries suddenly stopped functioning entirely. But the sabotage was only part of the intelligence disaster facing the Council. The humans had been gathering information for years through people who appeared to be ordinary civilians. Teachers who had mapped every school and government building. Shopkeepers who knew the daily routines of military personnel. Engineers who understood exactly how alien infrastructure worked and where it was most vulnerable. Captain Sarah Evans commanded the siege of Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world and the site where Ambassador Martinez had been murdered. Her fleet did not simply blockade the planet or demand surrender. Instead, they systematically dismantled its orbital infrastructure while broadcasting continuous footage of the assassination that had started this war. Every alien in the galaxy could watch the recordings of Lisa Martinez being gunned down in the Council chambers. They could see her staff being killed while trying to protect her. They could witness High Chancellor Vexstar standing over the bodies with satisfaction while the other Council species sat in their sections and did nothing to help or protest. The psychological warfare was as devastating as the military campaign. Dr. Wright's teams released detailed biological profiles of every Council species, making it clear that humanity possessed the knowledge and capability to create species-specific weapons of mass destruction for any alien race they chose to target. The research data showed genetic vulnerabilities that could be exploited, population centers that could be infected, and biological weak points that could be attacked. Engineer Lisa Park's cascade generators were deployed to 3 uninhabited star systems as a demonstration of humanity's ultimate weapon. The devices were small and unremarkable, looking like ordinary cargo containers as they drifted toward the target suns. Then they activated, and entire solar systems disappeared from the galaxy in minutes. The tests were broadcast across all communication networks, showing stars that had burned for billions of years suddenly collapsing into nothing or exploding into supernovas that sterilized everything within dozens of light years. The weapons worked exactly as designed, and the message was unmistakable to every species that watched the demonstrations. Continued resistance would result in the Council species joining those lifeless systems. Humanity had the technology to extinguish suns and render entire regions of space uninhabitable. They could eliminate not just populations or planets, but entire star systems with all the worlds and life they contained. The breaking point came when Commander Thompson's intelligence NETWRK revealed the full scope of the conspiracy behind Ambassador Martinez's assassination. The evidence showed detailed planning involving 4 of the 7 Council species, with the others simply choosing to look the other way when they learned what was going to happen. The Zephyrians had provided the weapons used in the attack. The Hegemony faction had coordinated the timing and placement of shooters throughout the chamber. The minor Council species had agreed to remain silent about the planned murder in exchange for favorable trade agreements. Only the Altarians had refused to participate, but even they had not warned the human delegation about what was coming. The revelation shattered any remaining unity in the Council's resistance efforts. Species that had worked together for thousands of years began blaming each other for starting a war that was destroying galactic civilization. Military commanders found their orders contradicted by politicians, who were desperately trying to find someone willing to negotiate with the humans, but humanity was no longer interested in negotiation or diplomacy. They had tried peaceful coexistence and been answered with assassination. They had offered friendship and trade, only to be expelled from the galaxy and threatened with extinction. The time for talking was over, and the time for consequences had begun. One by one, the surviving Council species began transmitting unconditional surrender offers to any human commander willing to listen. By the end of the first month, the galactic balance of power had shifted permanently and completely. The Krillian Empire, which had dominated Council politics for over 2,000 years, was reduced to a handful of heavily defended core worlds that were slowly dying from biological warfare and systematic infrastructure destruction. Their massive fleets, built for intimidation and conquest of weaker species, had proven helplessly outmatched against human military doctrine and superior technology. Captain Ryan Blake commanded the occupation forces on the Krillian homeworld, from his command center in what had once been High Chancellor Vextar's personal palace. The building's architecture was designed to intimidate visitors with its massive stone columns and glowing energy displays, but now it served as headquarters for human military operations throughout the sector. Blake walked through corridors that had once been filled with alien nobles and political leaders, past rooms where the decisions to murder human diplomats had been made in secret meetings. The Krillian survivors who remained in the building worked as servants and translators, their glowing red eyes dimmed with defeat and the knowledge that their species had brought this destruction upon themselves. The siege of Nexus Prime continued under Captain Sarah Evans's direction, but it was no longer a military operation in any traditional sense. Her fleet maintained complete control of orbital space, while human ground forces occupied every important installation on the planet's surface. The council chambers where Ambassador Martinez had been killed were now used as a broadcasting center for human propaganda operations throughout the galaxy. Evans stood in the exact spot where Lisa Martinez had died, looking down at the polished floor that still showed scorch marks from the energy weapons that had ended the diplomatic mission. The bloodstains had been cleaned away, but the burn patterns remained as permanent reminders of the moment when galactic politics had changed forever. The psychological impact of broadcasting from this location was devastating to alien morale throughout council space. Every species could see human officers conducting military briefings in the chamber, where their leaders had once ruled the galaxy. The message was clear and brutal in its symbolism. The old order was dead, and humanity now controlled the destiny of every alien civilization. Dr. Susan Wright's biological warfare campaigns had evolved beyond simple, species-specific diseases. Her research teams were now developing targeted pathogens that could affect specific bloodlines within alien populations, making it possible to eliminate ruling families while leaving common citizens untouched. The technology represented the ultimate precision weapon for political control. The Krillian nobility died first, their genetic markers making them easy targets for diseases that spread through the luxury goods and private communication networks that connected the ruling class. Within weeks, the entire governmental structure of the Krillian Empire collapsed as ministers, generals, and administrators succumbed to illnesses that their best medical experts could not identify or treat. General Paul Martinez established occupation governments on 17 different worlds, each one administered by human military officers who had been trained in alien psychology and social structures. The new rulers were not interested in enslaving alien populations or exploiting their resources for Earth's benefit. Instead, they focused on preventing any future military threats while demonstrating the consequences of betraying peaceful species. The occupation forces were surprisingly small, usually numbering in the hundreds rather than thousands on worlds with billions of alien inhabitants. But their power armor and advanced weapons made them individually capable of defeating entire battalions of alien troops, and their orbital support could destroy any target on a planet's surface. Within minutes of receiving coordinates, more importantly, the human commanders understood that true control came from demonstrating inevitable consequences rather than maintaining constant oppression. Alien populations that cooperated with the new order were left largely alone to rebuild their societies. Those that showed signs of resistance found their entire communities relocated to supervised settlements where every action was monitored and controlled. Engineer Lisa Park's cascade generators became the ultimate enforcement tool for human demands. Throughout Council space, the devices were deployed to orbit around every major alien world. Small and unremarkable objects that could end entire civilizations with a simple activation signal from Earth. Command. Park had initially hoped that the demonstration attacks on uninhabited systems would be sufficient to convince alien leaders that resistance was futile. But several species had continued fighting even after watching their suns be extinguished, forcing her to authorize the destruction of 3 populated star systems that had refused to surrender, the hegemony secondary. Capital System died first, its blue giant star collapsing into a black hole that consumed 4 worlds and 30 billion inhabitants in less than an hour. The Zephyrian military headquarters system followed, its twin suns exploding into supernovas that sterilized everything within 20 light years. The third demonstration targeted a Krillian colonial cluster, erasing 6 worlds and their populations from existence as if they had never been born. Each destruction was broadcast across the galaxy in real time, showing alien civilizations exactly what would happen to them if they continued to resist human authority. The psychological impact was catastrophic, breaking the will of species that had considered themselves unconquerable for thousands of years. Admiral Jack Harrison established his permanent command center aboard the UES Dominion, a fortress ship that was larger than most space stations and more heavily armed than entire alien fleets. The vessel traveled constantly throughout former Council space, appearing without warning in star systems where human authority needed to be reinforced or alien resistance needed to be eliminated. The Admiral's daily routine included reviewing reports from occupation forces, approving biological warfare operations, and authorizing cascade generator deployments against systems that refused to comply with human demands. He had become the single most powerful individual in galactic history, with the authority to eliminate entire species with a simple command. But Harrison took no pleasure in the destruction he commanded. His office aboard the Dominion contained a single photograph of Ambassador Lisa Martinez taken during her first diplomatic mission to Council space, when she had still believed that peaceful coexistence was possible between humans and aliens. The image served as a daily reminder of why this war had become necessary. Commander Kate Sullivan coordinated intelligence operations from a network of bases established throughout former Council territory. Her agents, many of them former sleeper operatives who had spent decades building cover identities, now worked openly to identify and eliminate any remaining threats to human authority. The intelligence networks revealed the true scope of alien planning that had led to the assassination of Earth's diplomatic mission. The conspiracy had involved not just government officials but entire populations that had supported the decision to eliminate humanity from galactic politics. The evidence showed celebrations on dozens of worlds. When news of the ambassador's death had been announced, Sullivan's reports made it clear that the war could not end with simple military victory. The alien species had demonstrated that they viewed humans as existential threats to be eliminated rather than equals to be respected. Peace would only be possible when every alien civilization understood that future. Aggression against humanity would result in immediate and total extinction. The surviving Council species began competing with each other to demonstrate their complete submission to human authority. Former allies betrayed each other to human intelligence officers, hoping to earn better treatment by providing information about resistance activities or hidden weapon stockpiles. The Altarians, who had abstained from the vote to assassinate Ambassador Martinez, received the most favorable treatment under the new order. Their worlds were occupied by small human garrisons rather than full military governments, and their population was allowed to maintain most of its traditional social structures as long as they demonstrated absolute loyalty to Earth. But even the Altarians faced constant monitoring and the permanent threat of extinction if they showed any signs of planning future resistance. Their leaders were required to submit to regular psychological evaluations by human experts, and their military forces were reduced to small police units equipped with weapons that could not threaten human installations. The other Council species faced various degrees of punishment based on their level of involvement in the conspiracy against humanity. The Zephyrians lost their homeworld entirely, with their surviving population relocated to a single supervised colony world where every aspect of their lives was controlled by human administrators, the minor Council species that had supported the assassination plot found their territories divided among more cooperative alien groups, their governments dissolved, and their populations scattered across dozens of refugee settlements. Their civilizations effectively ceased to exist as independent entities, surviving only as supervised communities under permanent human oversight. 6 months after Ambassador Lisa Martinez's death, the war ended not with a treaty or negotiated settlement, but with the complete restructuring of galactic civilization under human authority. The council that had ruled for millennia was dissolved. Permanently, its chambers on Nexus Prime converted into a memorial for the murdered diplomatic mission. In its place stood the Terran hegemony, with Admiral Jack Harrison serving as supreme commander of all inhabited space. The transformation was absolute and irreversible. Every major decision affecting any alien species now required approval from human administrators. Trade routes, resource allocation, population movements, and even cultural activities fell under the oversight of Earth's military government. The galaxy that had once been ruled by alien consensus was now controlled by human decree. Captain Ryan Blake became the permanent military governor of the former Krillian Empire, ruling over the remnants of a species that had once considered itself the master race of the galaxy. His headquarters remained in what had been High Chancellor Vexstar's palace, though the building had been extensively modified to serve human needs and demonstrate the complete reversal of galactic power structures. The Krillian population had been reduced to fewer than 500 million individuals, scattered across a dozen supervised worlds where every aspect of their existence was monitored and controlled. Their once mighty military had been completely disbanded, their weapons confiscated and their shipbuilding capacity destroyed. They survived only because Blake believed that maintaining them as a living example would be more effective than simple extinction. Blake walked through the palace corridors each morning, passing Krillian servants who kept their glowing red eyes downcast in recognition of their species' complete defeat. These survivors represented the final remnant of a civilization that had dominated galactic politics for thousands of years, now reduced to manual laborers and translators serving their human conquerors. The other council species faced various fates determined by their level of participation in the conspiracy to murder. Earth's diplomatic mission, Dr. Susan Wright's biological warfare. Research had evolved into what became known as the Genetic Monitoring Protocol, a comprehensive system for tracking and controlling alien populations throughout the galaxy. Every known alien species had their complete genetic profiles, cataloged in databases maintained on Earth and in human facilities throughout former Council space. Tailored biological weapons were kept in strategic stockpiles, ready for immediate deployment against any population that showed signs of resistance or rebellion. The message was clear and brutal. Any future aggression would result in swift species-wide elimination. Wright's research teams continued developing new applications for their biological control systems. They created fertility-regulating viruses that could reduce alien birth rates without causing immediate death, allowing human authorities to control population growth on occupied worlds. They designed mood-altering pathogens that could reduce aggressive tendencies in species known for violent behavior. The technology represented the ultimate tool for social control, allowing humans to reshape alien societies at the genetic level. Species that had evolved as natural predators could be modified to become peaceful farmers. Civilizations built around warrior cultures could be transformed into passive worker populations within a single generation. Engineer, Lisa Parks Cascade. Generator technology remained humanity's ultimate deterrent against future threats. The devices were deployed throughout former Council space, hidden in asteroid belts and planetary rings where they could not be detected or disabled by alien forces. The network was designed to ensure that any existential threat to Earth would trigger the systematic destruction of every inhabited star system in the galaxy. Park had established her permanent research facility on a world that existed in folded space, invisible to normal detection and accessible only through dimensional gates controlled by human military forces. Her work had expanded beyond simple star destruction to include methods for manipulating gravity, altering planetary orbits, and creating artificial black holes that could serve as both weapons and power sources. The technology gave humanity godlike power over the physical structure of the galaxy itself. Stars could be moved or destroyed at will. Planets could be relocated to more convenient orbits or eliminated entirely if they harbored rebellious populations. The very fabric of space and time had become a tool for human strategic planning.